I was raised in Grand Island. I went to Jefferson, Walnut, senior high, graduated in 1977. My mother graduated in 1955 from senior high. So we have our family's been here a long, long time. I left for about 25 years and went to the military, and I moved up the ranks from the military from E1 to, I retired as a command master chief of a destroyer. So I've been in senior management quite a while, and I served my country, and now I want to serve my city. I've been all over the world, and Grand Island is the best.
And since you've been back, you've worked at the airport, and you've been there through the construction of a new terminal, a new fixed base operator. You saw the old place and kind of had to band-aid that together, and now what that airport means to this community.
Oh, it's a gem there. I've been out there 17 years. I'm the operations and security manager, and I've seen it go from almost nothing, 5,000 people, to excess of 70,000 flying out. So that's 140,000 people through there a year. That's just amazing.
You know, when you look at this kind of being a growing community, like you said, the airport's one example of that. What do you see as being some of the steps that we need to take as a community to keep growing as a community?
Well, to keep growing, I think we're doing the right things, just to keep an eye on it. And we need to keep the people updated on what is going on. You know, they just can't read it in the paper and then it's already happened. They need to participate, have a say in it, kind of like the veterans home. We don't even have the veterans involved in the planning phase of this. And we really need the veterans involved and part of this rebuilding of the veterans home.
Yeah, what would you do to kind of get people more engaged in city government?
Well, I think if you get the word out and go talk to people, I think if you're on the streets and you talk to people, you go to their organizations, and you make it easy for you to talk to.
I take it the plan is if you become mayor, you'll be retiring from your airport job and you'd be able to be around and kind of be available at City Hall. Is that the idea?
Correct. I'll be a full-time mayor. I'm going to retire in October out of the airport, and I'll be on the deck plates with the people, talking to the workers, talking to the people. If you have a question, you just call me and I'll find out about it.
You know, you've been in some management roles. If the voters were to send you to City Hall, how would you kind of approach just kind of the day-to-day things of working with department directors? And there's a lot of stuff that happens that's not necessarily glamorous. It's, you know, whether that's negotiating a contract with a union, or it's some infrastructure stuff, you know, or just all the day-to-day things that happen they're not exciting but need to be done to keep a city going.
Well, what makes it easy, I'm an easy person to talk to. And I'd have an open door policy. I mean, I would take the doors off the office. But I would allow the department heads and the people, the resources we have, the workers of Grand Island, to tell me how things are. And if there's a better way to do something, we'll, by all means, let's discuss that and see if it's cost effective. But you need to back and forth communication, two-way communications, not just one-way communications.
You know, when you look at being mayor, there's so many different responsibilities, because on one hand, one day you might be dealing with a road construction project and what we're going to do in there. Another day you might be dealing with parks, or the library, or public safety, police, and fire, you know, and then so many other things too. You know, how would you kind of go about, you know, prioritizing, deciding how to spend the dollars, and, you know, how to provide those services?
Well, you got to. Once again, it's communication with the voters, communication with your department heads. Find out where the priorities are, what the people's priorities are, and go towards that, and see if you can balance everything together and make it all work out.
You know, tell me a little bit about, you mentioned it, obviously your military career, you've been around the airport. This idea of public service, is that something that is important to you?
Very, very important to me. I've always said I wanted to run for mayor. Even when I was a little kid, I told my dad that, hey, someday I want to be mayor of Grand Island. But you know, and that's to prove that you can do anything anymore. I served my country, and I came back, and that was one of my goals, was to eventually retire from my job and become mayor, get involved in the city. You know, make things happen, make this the best, make this an all-American city again.
You know, when I look at the way that this community has grown over the years, we're kind of in a weird in-between spot. You can maybe look at us as the biggest of the smaller cities or the smallest of the big ones. When you look in terms of something like the airport or the facilities at Fauner Park, we've got some of the best in anywhere, better even in some cases than what Lincoln and Omaha have. Or how do we kind of need to cast the vision for the kind of selling some of those facilities that we got in this community?
Well, I think we do a pretty good job of selling. We got the EDCs very active in the community, but we need to clean up and take care of what we got before we add new things. I drive around the city and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. Abandoned cars, graffiti. We need to get out there and get involved, the citizens, and clean up our city.
Talk to me, Lynn. That kind of leads into public safety, police. How would you go about kind of working with the police department on crime and related issues?
Well, as I've said over and over again, we're at least 9 to 11 police officers short, and that's something that didn't happen over a year. That's happened the last 3 years or 4 years. We need to make it a good job. It's a very hard job, very hard to be a policeman, and we need to make it worth their while. We need to sit down with them and communicate and see what we need to do to keep them here and to attract new people, new police officers here. We're going to have a problem. You just don't hire a policeman and 60 days later they're out on the street policing. It's a couple years it takes to break them in and learn everything.
Yeah, no kidding. In terms of, the city has issues struggling, but hiring people. But I talk to employers in this community, and they say, first of all, it's hard to attract people sometimes. Our unemployment is so ridiculously low. About everybody who's got a pulse has a job anymore. It's hard to hire. What do we need to do in terms of trying to attract people to come work in our community?
Well, I think we have the high school. We need to keep the kids that graduate from the high school here. And we attract them with CCC, the different tech trades, and the Success Academy we have here is outstanding. We need to, the people that we can advertise and market our city because we got the best little city around, to live in.
Then in terms of, the other thing is kind of related a lot of times is housing. I talk to people and they say they're moving to this town and they look at what's considered an affordable house, and it's what is considered affordable. It doesn't look too affordable to me. Correct. Are there some things we can do to deal with some of the housing issues?
Well, it looks like I've listened to the new LB 840 funds, and they're going to provide some funding for that. We also use TIF wisely, and then we can go out and successfully get grants and federal programs to add housing, cost-effective housing. If you're making $15 an hour, it's hard to pay $1,000 a month rent. Exactly. We need to be realistic.
Yeah, and you mentioned it too, but the city's been pretty successful getting some state dollars to do some housing. TIF, I know, is not always a popular thing, but do we have to kind of work with those developers to, if there's some stuff that the city can kind of partner with a developer on, it's hard enough to build a house, but then if you got to build the roads and the sewer and all that, if we can use some TIF to kind of help a development come along, is that an option we need to consider?
No, that's exactly what TIF is for the infrastructure and to allow those people to build, upgrade, and build affordable housing. So it's perfectly and we use it quite often here, but it can be used and it's utilized.
Also related, it just dawns on me too, Senator Aguilar was just part of a bill with Wayne State, try to attract young, college kids to Grand Island. Do we need to do more of those kinds of things? I hear people say, the younger people really like what's going on downtown, for example, and kind of build on some of these strengths we have to try to, get creative maybe about recruiting, especially the younger people.
Oh, correct, and we can go to colleges like Wayne State, and that's the perfect program is that intern program where they're going to be here for a year, and they're even going to eventually utilize the veterans home as a dormitory type place, that's good. Yeah. We need to respect what we put in there, and that'll work.
Being mayor, you also have to deal with a lot of just just like we talked about earlier, but infrastructure, those things are not always glamorous, but repairing things like sewer lines or building roads, we can't really develop a community. You know, I look at, we've got a new hospital. That wouldn't have happened if we had not put sewer lines in and helped with some things like that. Do we got to continue to invest in infrastructure?
Oh, exactly. You never stop investing in infrastructure. It's an ongoing thing, and you got to keep it up. You mean you can't put it down there and then forget about it 20 years later. You got to keep it up, do the maintenance on it, and replace it when needed.
Something else that crosses my mind, but you know, we're a pretty diverse community anymore. You know, my kids are probably minorities within their class. What kinds of things can we do to engage with people, you know, from all backgrounds in this community?
Well, I think we do. We got a lot of cultural things going on all the time here, and it's just to intermingle. And the people of Grand Island are so good, and they're so friendly. And it's just like one big community here. They do a good job here.
You know, we're also getting to a point where we're kind of coming out of COVID or wherever we're at on that. I never know exactly, but you know, you look at where we were 2 years ago, our employers by and large stayed open. You know, it is a good reminder that we have a lot of essential workers in this community, whether you're building combines that help farmers or you're processing cattle into beef that goes all over the world, that we're still largely an agricultural community, and when the world shuts down, we got a lot of people in this community who still goes to work. You know, do you think we're poised to come out of COVID pretty strong?
Oh, I think we did, and I don't think COVID took us down, way down like it did everyone else. Our unemployment did not go wild. It stayed pretty much the same, and all our factories were open, and all our people were working. There was very few people that were not working during COVID in Grand Island.
In terms of quality of life stuff, you know, you got to have that side of things too, parks and libraries and recreation, and how would you kind of go about those things?
Well, we just need to invest in them like we have. I mean, Grand Island's probably got more parks per person than any place else. We just need to keep care of what we got and update them and fix them up when they get ragged.
Any other priorities I haven't mentioned? What are some of the other things that just in general is maybe you become mayor that you would want to kind of cast the vision for?
Well, the vision for Grand Island is we've done a lot of right things over the years. We just need to continue doing the right things. We need to keep the people informed of what is going on. We shouldn't hear about something on a Thursday when it's on a vote for city council on Tuesday. You know, we need to think logical thinking before we vote on something.
What are some of the kind of steps you could see maybe happening to try to keep people a little more informed of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think even if we just had our website, if we had updated, we could have all the projects like TIP projects on the website and what's the duration, what's happening with each. You know, and update people, you know, have just a place that they can go, maybe on the internet, maybe somewhere out in the paper, you know, once a month, update them on what's the projects and what's the status of those projects.
Well, we're running out of questions. Anything else that comes to mind that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, the real thing is, one of my biggest concerns is the veterans home and getting veterans involved in the process of the rebuild and redevelopment of that home. They need to share into that, and we need to let them.
Just final question, but as people go to the polls, or maybe they're voting by mail, and maybe they've already got that ballot on their kitchen table and they're trying to decide who to vote for, well, why should they fill in the little circle next to your name?
Well, I am what I am, just like Popeye here. I've served my country, I'm ready to serve my city, and I think I'm the people's choice.